We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's extended warranty.
Alright everybody, welcome back. So I figured we should go ahead and cover another one of the Python slingers in this patch, and that's going to be the J-8F. Now, this is a much more upgraded version of the earlier J-8B that we already had in the tree. I made a video on that recently, by the way. But essentially the TLDR is to get more powerful engines, a better radar, and Pythons. Now, for more in-detail thing, the Python 3. I've already talked about this on my last video, but this missile is absolutely nuts. It is the best IR missile in the game, without a doubt, at least in my opinion. And you can pull off some absolutely insane things with it. Now, this plane doesn't have the same advantages that the Netz does, and we'll get to that here in a little bit, but you still get the very nice advantage of just having Pythons in the first place. These missiles are incredibly fast, they have 40 G pull, pretty much all the bells and whistles you can need. The flare resistance isn't what they used to be. It has the same flare resistance as the AIM-9L right now, which means it is definitely flareable. But I mean, if someone keeps their burner on, then sometimes it'll track through the flares and kill them anyways. I have had people flaring them even with the burner on, which is a little bit disappointing, but overall it is quite nice. Now, one major advantage the J-8F has over the Netz is the fact that it has HMD. I've seen a lot of people being really excited about that. You can actually see me using it right here. I don't actually have to move my plane to go ahead and get the missile onto these enemies. In this case, I don't get either one of these kills, but I have had quite a few cases where I'm just able to fly straight, mouse over somebody, and just go ahead and pop them with a missile, and it is pretty fun. This also works for those of y'all who play sim with like face track and VR and stuff like that, so you're able to just look at a person and lock them, which is pretty cool to be honest. There's another case that a flare resistance that I was talking about. He left his burner on, so I decided to keep tracking anyways, and it just absolutely beams him. This thing has just so much thrust that it has no issues whatsoever. And with how many of these like 11.3 premiums you're seeing, you get a lot of times where, even though I wouldn't necessarily recommend firing them all aspect, you'll get weird shots like this right here where he's not really looking at me. He doesn't realize that I have a missile that can just easily get over here. And by the time he's looking in my direction, it's most likely burnt out anyways, so you don't really have to worry about it for the most part. Now, this plane is at 11.7, and for 11.7, the flight performance really isn't all that. I have some more examples later on, but one of the big things is that since it's a MiG-21 airframe, your rip speed is pretty subpar for this battle rating. You can see that F-14 just was able to run away from me the entire time until he got to his airfield. Now, I do manage to get him here, but that's just because he turned around. It has the same rip speed of 1365 as the J-8B, which, I mean, although it was good at 11.0, up at this BR it really doesn't cut it, especially when you have stuff like MiG-29s, F-14s, F-16s, all that kind of stuff. So, for those of y'all who like having a radar gun indicator thingamabob, it does actually have one of those, and it does help a little bit the gish. It is a lot better when it comes to like actually being accurate this patch compared to last patch, so I wouldn't fault you for using it, although it messes me up personally. For those of y'all who play sim, here's the cockpit. I do actually really like the HUD on this thing, even though the cockpit's not that great. For now, what you gotta do is just stay low. Don't try and do BVR stuff, because I mean, you really can't. At least for now, at least. Your 6 Pythons are a very competent kit, especially when combined with the HMD, so I recommend just flying around like I'm doing right here and missiling people. One thing you can do is kind of little cheeky head-ons, especially the F4S players. You can fire it away from them and have it curve in, just like I did in the intro. A lot of the time, they won't even flare because they think that you fired it away from them. Now, I wouldn't recommend using a direct head-on most of the time like that, because people are going to notice you and flare it, and then they're going to hit you, just like I did right there. Now, I do want to say, just so I can go ahead and get this out of the way, on the dev blog for the J-8F, they actually said that they are going to be adding more advanced BVR missiles in the future, and when they do so, this thing will get the PL-12. That doesn't help you in the meantime, of course. You just got these Pythons, which, although they are very good, it gives you no BVR capability at all. Like, not even the SP data. Go ahead and beat them in the head-on with a radar missile. So, that is something to keep in mind that it'll probably change in the future, but to be honest with you, I'd rather just leave it without the radar missile, because it turned into another one of the situations where a bad plane has really good missiles and is very difficult to balance. Because if you give it the PL-12, the PL-12 is supposed to be like better than the AMRAAM-C, from what I understand at least, or at least a contemporary to the AMRAAM-C, which you're going to be seeing on stuff like the F-15C. This thing is not going to hold a candle to the F-15C, so you either have a situation where you put it too low in VR, and all of a sudden it is fighting stuff where they should not be fighting, or you put it up super high and it's basically useless, and it's just like, why is this even here? I don't see it being very competitive if they give it the PL12. They said they're going to on the devlog, so it's going to happen most likely regardless, but I kind of wish that they wouldn't. That is just me, of course. We'll see what happens. I wish they just do it for, like, I believe the J10 could carry the PL12. So whenever we get the J10, I'd rather they just go ahead and give that the PL12 along with the SPD. Now, I know I've been talking a little bit of the flight performance. This thing is a MiG-21 airframe. I am crit right now, so it's not a super great representation of how this thing is going to perform, but it does just generally bleed a lot of speed, and I'll be showing that off here in a little bit. That's the major issue that I have with this thing compared to everything else, is that, like, sure, it pulls a lot of AOA, but when it does so, it basically bleeds all of its speed. And the acceleration, while good, isn't really enough to get you out of most situations. Now, I get lucky here and people choose to disengage. I'm going to go ahead and go back to base, RTB, and then come back again. And you can see I'm going to go ahead and come around this corner. I'm going to slam someone with a Python from like 6 kilometers front because he's not paying attention. I do try and turn for this MLD, but the problem is he actually knows that I'm here, or at least he notices me coming. So he is going to decoy this missile, and then it comes down to a dogfight. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I'm in this plane, I do not feel comfortable in a dogfight against an MLD. The problem is the MLD just has so much better energy retention. It still has decent AOA that it can just fly circles around me. Like, I can pull after him a couple times, but then I have no speed left. It also doesn't help that I am in a 2v1 situation right now. I believe there's a third person coming, but I can definitely see the second F-16 coming, and that thing definitely whips me in a dogfight. Because, sure, I turn once or twice inside of him. After that, we're both down below like 800 kilometers an hour, and then he just absolutely steamrolls me. Because low-speed F-16 is terrifying. And I am managing to decoy all their missiles right now. I just barely get that one right there. And I'm going to go up and around, and I actually am going to get a shot off on this MLD here in a second, because I do my delta wing thing, I bleed all of my speed, and I get him to overshoot. And I should have been rewarded, because, you know, I outplayed him, and he managed to wind up in front of my guns. But unfortunately for me, as you're about to see, real shatter exists, and so even though I hit him, all I'm going to get is a hit. Literally just a hit. And in a 2v1 situation, just like I'm in right here, getting a hit can mean the difference between life or death. So now I'm having to deal with this F-16. I am much more worried about him, so I'm going to try and focus him to get him out of the match. Just because, like, and let's just be honest, an F-16 is much more dangerous than an MLD. Now, if you look, I do drop my burner for a second and flare. Unfortunately, though, I still get slammed by the R60M. I probably just didn't flare for long enough, or didn't leave my burner off for long enough, so that's the overall gist of it. It's a fun little missile slinger, but I'd still rather play the Netz. The HMD isn't nearly enough to make up for the lack of flight performance, at least for top tier. If I was going to play a plane that was going to, you know, pull a lot of AOA and bleed a ton of speed, personally I'd rather play the Kafir, because at least then I get reliable guns, because Defas are much more reliable than the Gish right now. If I wanted to play another plane that pulls a lot of AOA, then I'd honestly rather play the current S2000 over this as well. It's 11.3, still gets 6 Pythons, and it has 234 countermeasures, and low fuel Phantom is pretty baller. I might make a video on that future, but in any case, I am going to do a little bit of channel admin stuff now. So for those of y'all who haven't noticed, I actually finally hit 5,000 subscribers, which has been my goal for quite some time, and well over a month ahead of time. So I'm very grateful for all of y'all. I really do appreciate it. I wanted to let y'all know I'm not starting it right now, but starting next week, I'm going to do a giveaway. I'm going to have the details on that in the video on Wednesday. So look forward to that once I get everything sorted out. In the meantime, though, I did go ahead and change the channel icon and the channel banner. So I hope y'all enjoy that. You probably noticed that whenever you click on the video. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. In any case, once again, I am so very grateful for y'all. And I will see y'all next time. So, peace, y'all.